Hello and welcome to The Drug Trip. This channel is here to feed the curiosity of those who would like to gain an insight to the effects of various drugs and substances through user experiences and stories, with our main goal being to entertain and reduce harm and abuse. We post regular trip reports every few days, so if you do enjoy these, we would really appreciate it if you subscribed. And more importantly, we love to hear our viewers' thoughts, opinions and experiences, so please leave something for us in the comment section and we may use it in a future video. Enjoy and be safe. I ate the mushrooms at around 10:45 and washed them down with Monster Energy. The others with me decided that we would go to a park to smoke some weed. I was hoping we would get back before they started kicking in. While we walked into the park, I began to feel a bit of a body high. My limbs began feeling lighter, starting from my feet and radiating upwards. It eventually became a euphoric numbness that would pulsate through my entire body. We reached a point where we were going to smoke, and I began feeling it in my head. At first, it felt just like I was a really numb, high-like body, strange visual perspective of the world. I decided to join my friends who had situated themselves in a tunnel under a bridge and hit the bong with them to ensure a punctuated experience. Suddenly, it felt like my body was spaghetti. I could walk and stand, but I would swerve left and right, all around, as if I was drunk. I managed to get out of the tunnel to my friend who didn't smoke and was sort of keeping watch. Things then kicked into high gear. The first thing I noticed were rainbow halos around every light, which eventually transformed to look like lens flares, but with rainbow-coloured tendrils extending out from them. Soon I began seeing flashes of light everywhere, like lightning in a cloud, but in the skies, in the trees and in the grass. This was followed by a visible image, making the world look blurred. It was then my entire vision was paved with tessellated fractals, a grid overlaying everything. I saw that it was pulsating with colour. The whole sky was shifting from a deep purple to a dull red. I began experiencing pareidolia, seeing faces on every mottled surface, mostly Aztec and Inuit art-looking faces, but also some angry-looking faces in the bark of the trees. They were too tessellated and nestled into every surface. At this point, the trees began doing surreal things. One row of trees looked like the exact same tree copied, pasted and mirrored over and over and over again. Another tree had transformed into the shape of a perfectly symmetrical snowflake. Others were bending and rippling and pulsating. Any light source was now radiating rainbows. At this point, the sky was now being crossed by flashing rainbow wires, and the psychedelic grid was replaced with tessellated, colourful animal faces, most notably bears. It was at this point my friends were finished smoking, and we started walking back. My body ceased to exist, and I felt like I was made of smoke. As we walked down the road was swirling with flowing colours like a river, and my smoky body kept getting caught up in it, and then it was drifting away. Now things began to take on the appearance of mosaics, the world made up of interlocking polygons. Every sound I heard stuttered and trailed off. I no longer had the sense of body, and it felt like I was just moving on my own accord without any control from my mind. I somehow made it back without just collapsing and tripping out. And at this point my mind was dominated by stuttery, tearing sounds, and the world became stairs, and the word stairs in my voice started echoing in my head again and again. We got inside. This was when existence stopped working. The first thing to happen was the utter destruction of linear time. I collapsed onto the floor and lay there as my body slowly faded away to join the fractals that composed the ground, and my mind wandered off. For the next 2 hours I faded in and out of physical unconsciousness. My conscious state consisted of an extremely warped real world. My unconscious state consisted of my mind travelling to separate worlds and voids. I don't know the order of what any of this happened in, so I'll just list them as they came to mind. Unconsciously, the most significant world I had travelled to was an infinite expanse of swirling and interlocking colours and fractals with no real definition of time or space. I wasn't even some sort of physical manifestation within the world, just another part of this endless swirl. While I was there, I felt like everything had already happened. I was currently experiencing the past, and there was no such concept as present. It was here that I felt so insignificant that I reached higher and higher to a plane of existence, that because I was here, it didn't matter if my body died or anything. I would just consider this the peak of the trip, whenever it happened. Other subconscious experiences were incredible. I travelled into a wild world of my imagination, seeing fantastic creatures that defy description. In here, I had a physical manifestation of a muscular man with a prism for a head. At one point, I battled a great horned fractal beast with a rippling sword made of tessellated diamonds. I also had a period where I entered the game Oblivion, and through this world was not nearly as psychedelic. Everything still had a rainbow sheen to it. Recent memories and dreams kept popping up, completely distorting my perception of time, and I vividly relived happenings from earlier in the day, along with being able to feel freely and freely explore psychedelic versions of my dream worlds. It almost felt as though I was lucid dreaming. At one point, the room fell away to reveal a vast cityscape, inhabited by faceless white people in work clothes. The overworld was even more disorienting. Once again, I have no idea when any of this happened. My body would thrash around automatically beyond my conscious control while I was in this overworld. And at some point, I managed to remove my shirt and kick over a large bucket of dry cat food. This entire overworld experience was married with a striking paranoia that I had to either sat in dog shit or I had vomited. Each time I faded back into reality, I wasn't sure whether or not I had actually done either of those things, and I would manage to ask one of my friends in broken English. When they confirmed that neither had happened, I was stricken with waves of euphoria and relief before falling into unconsciousness again. I attempted controlled movement when I was awake, but my body literally felt like it was made of liquid, and I would quickly collapse, watching my arm ripple and melt into the ground. My waking moments were a host of all sorts of peculiar visions and experiences. My friends had put on a George Carlin routine, but his words were deflecting off me as incomprehensible babble, and there were around 5 different coloured mirror images of him on the screen. There was a point where my friends were laughing, but they had all had eyes and mouths in the back of their heads, and the eyes were staring at me and laughing maliciously at me. One of my male friends turned into a green-eyed girl. The dimensions of the room and my body stretched and distorted. I saw friends there who weren't really there. I fumbled with an imaginary pair of glasses. A booming voice would tell me I fucked up and that I should not interact with people. At one point, I saw everyone standing over me, concerned, and envisioned myself on a hospital gurney, dying. They put on a new movie, and the characters had way too many eyes and were trying to talk to me. I still had no idea what time it was. My mind shattered. I lost all concept of using the English language. I could no longer connect words to meanings. I tried to talk to people, tell them, and it made sense in my head, but apparently I was just babbling strings of random words to them. I then lost the ability to think. I could no longer memorise things for very long, and I could no longer connect my thoughts. While my friends were laughing on the couch, I was on the floor trying to piece together what had just happened and gain a grasp of language and rational thought. My thoughts would lead from one to another, the most recent one fading into obscurity. My memory felt like a video game where the player runs across a path of blocks that collapses behind them. A new thought, the previous one, would utterly disappear. This led me through an endless chain of questioning my own existence and whether or not I had permanently damaged my mind. I ran across the room and sat on the couch, my friends confused but also stoned to hell and watching a movie. While on the couch, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had fucked something up or done something terrible. When I tried to ask, it was once again just babble and gibberish. They may have reassured me, but I had quickly forgotten their words. I became trapped in several time loops, repeating the same action or experiencing the same thing 20 or so times in a row. I began falling into holes where I would literally fall at something and seem to fall into it, only to end up in the same position. These holes included floor tiles, a cat, and a chasm that opened up on my arm. I faded into nothingness for a bit until I realised my friends had gone to sleep. At this point I was capable of rational thought, but I had no idea what communication even was. My thoughts were still racing and going in circles, but I could at least remember things. I became terrified that I had permanently damaged my mind, so I curled up waiting for the trip to end. I watched my fingers drop off and objects appear and disappear before my eyes. At this time, everything still had a rainbow double image. Around 2:30, the hallucinations and bad thoughts had finally stopped. I was suddenly lucid-minded. I cleaned up the cat food, put my shirt back on, and I didn't sleep for the rest of the night.